So this is what you saw. But what if I told you, behind the story of what you saw, there was a player that felt like he was derailed? What if I told you his professionalism came across as arrogance? What if I told you that in pursuit of his dream, at every turn, he was told no? What if I told you that no matter how good his technique was, it just seemed like he was out of favor with the coaches? This is the untold story of Colin Biros. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to All Pass Podcast. Over the past 2 to 3 months, All Pass as a business has gone completely public. We are now officially an LLC company recognized by the state of Ohio. The reason we haven't brought in any content to you in quite some time is because some of our direct services have begun to take off. We've been working with a lot of teams, which has been an amazing experience. Thank you to all the schools so far that we've had the opportunity to come in, partner with, and work on the mental fitness of their programs. This podcast has also undergone a name change. So over the course of time, we've been trying to think of a creative name to continue to support athletes. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the AHA podcast, aka the Athletes Helping Athletes podcast. And what is really awesome about this is we do have a returning guest. This was not something that we planned on here of doing, but when your brother calls you and says that he has a story that he would like to continue to tell, you pick up the phone and you make calls and you get into space and you turn the microphones on and you continue the conversation. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome back my brother, Colin Biros.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. So a couple of weeks ago, Colin called me out of the blue and he said, Q, over the past couple of years, I've really tried to think about why things did not work out the way I wanted them to. And oddly enough, he said, in the past couple of weeks, I've had an aha moment. And I think it would be something that I would like to further expand upon. So let me bring everybody back into who Colin is. As you saw in our first episode that you can find in our YouTube stream, Colin is a local product from the Massillon-Jackson area, for those of you that are local. Colin forewent a lot of his high school soccer career to pursue a professional soccer journey. He went from playing with Jackson in his freshman season to playing for the Columbus Crew Academy for 3 years. During his time at the Columbus Crew Academy, he led his team in points, led his team in assists, scored multiple goals in the GA Cup. He also played in a preseason game against the Seattle Sounders the year after they won the MLS Cup, scoring a goal against their first team. He went on to feature at Akron University at a time that they were nationally ranked first in the country. In his freshman year, they went to the national championship game. Unfortunately, they lost there. After a few years at Akron, he transferred out to Syracuse, where within 2 years, he became a national champion. So, welcome back, Colin.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's good, man. What's been the good word since the last time you were in with us?
Not much, really. Just been working, trying to find some more stable work, I guess. Yeah, a lot of thinking, a lot of processing, if you will. But yeah, I mean, where do you really want me to start, I guess?
So I think the last time where we kind of came to a close, I want to recall and say that you had said there was an identity crisis that was happening. There was this, I didn't know who Colin was. Everything that I tried to do, people told me wasn't good enough. So then I changed and tried to become something else. And, there's been a lot of frustration and a lot of hurt. And I think we didn't have a lot of time to expand into that idea of what is the residual factors and feelings when you do touch the tip of the mountaintop and expect to go on to the next level. But for whatever reason, the leadership around you, or we could call them the gatekeepers, are not in your favor.
Yeah. I mean, looking back on it, the past couple of years, I guess I'll start it out when I went to, it was my first year in academy. I was at Internationals at the time. It was still a club. They don't have a men's side anymore, but it was a humbling experience, if you will, because my team at Internationals and the leagues we were playing at before academy were actually pretty good. We weren't the greatest team in the region, in the area, but we were competitive, probably mid-table, winning every other weekend. And obviously I thought I was really good, right? Because that's how you are at that age. I thought I was really good.
Of course.
get into the first year of academy, and it was an eye opener. It's like, wow, this is the level. And this was when I was in about 8th grade. We play the first academy game I ever played in was against Crew Wolves at Pinnacle, and Crew Wolves at the time were very good. They had a lot of really good players. Fryman Tatu, Aiden Nam. Who else was on the team? They had a few other players. Logan Kowalczyk, who actually became our goalie my senior year, was on that team at the time. And, yeah, they popped us 7-0. Wasn't even close. I think Fry had like 4 goals or something like that.
Ouch.
I got subbed out at halftime. We didn't have anything going. It wasn't good. Next weekend, we play Chicago Magic, and Chicago Fire. Or Chicago Soccer, sorry. Chicago Soccer and Chicago Fire. 2 of probably the best teams in the league at that age. Yeah, another probably 6-0, another 5-0. It was 8-0 against Chicago Fire. So, yeah, those are my first couple weeks, my first couple games in academy. Played maybe 40% of the games. Wasn't playing well. Couldn't figure it out. These guys were really big, really fast, much better than me. And, yeah, I wasn't quite figuring it out. And I attribute that to, as well, probably the club at the time. Just wasn't ready for that league. A little bit in above our head.
Sure.
Not in our depth, if that's the right saying. But so after that, I decided to leave internationals and play high school my freshman year under my dad. He convinced me. I wanted to go back to academy, but he said probably better for me to play high school, play against the older guys, get used to being physical. And to be honest with you, it was probably the right decision. So I play my freshman year. We actually do okay.
Okay, hold on. Time out. Don't do that.
What?
I was there. Don't do that.
We did all right.
Right? Hey, I was there.
We did
don't,
all right.
Don't do that. Hold on. For the people that y'all need to understand, I was around at this time. I was coaching for his dad at this time at the high school level as well and at the club level. So getting you in your freshman year was huge for us. And you got to play with your brother, who was a senior at that time, which that was a great experience for probably the family from that standpoint.
Sure, absolutely.
But I will say this, as an observer, even as a freshman on the varsity park, undersized, as you were naturally growing, still the best player on the park. Finding spaces, pace of pass, making guys left and right, picking out balls that, again, other guys were not seeing at all. And it was, if we want to be honest, upon reflection, we put a lot of pressure on your shoulders as like a 10/7 coming inside, trying to kind of camouflage you against some of the more athletic players just to get you on the ball. But once you got on the ball, our team flew forward.
Yeah, and I think what separated me from a lot of players on my age was getting the ball in that half space and being able to progress the game forward quickly, get it moving. I didn't like to when I was younger, I liked to dribble a lot. But as I got older, I realized I didn't grow like the other guys grew. So if I dribbled one guy, maybe 2, the 3rd or 4th were catching up to me. So it was very much get the ball to my feet, maybe beat a guy or 2, play the ball forward, get it to my wingers, get it to my forwards, get it to the guys who are probably, going to go do the scoring. That was my role. And, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's funny because I played really well under my dad. And I think that's just because I felt comfortable. I really could feel like I could just play my game. I could do my thing. And I think that obviously helps because it is my dad, right? And not a lot of people feel that way when they play under my dad, which is kind of funny.
Hey, some of the practice,
though. Oh, don't get me wrong. He taught me a few lessons. I remember there was one training. Oh, this still rubs me. There was a pass that I played that probably wasn't the right decision, but obviously in my head I thought it was. And me and him were just going back and forth with it in the middle of the training for like 2 minutes. And then he finally just had enough of it.
I recall.
And he brought you over from the other field. And he's like, Q, pick 3 guys. I think he picked Loic, Quentin, Peterson. Who else did you pick? I want to say Clayton.
Sure.
I can't remember. And he basically just made them do suicides while I stood there and watched.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, that sucks.
In what we do here, I want to ask you, just at this point, so coming from Cleveland Internationals, coming into high school, like making that decision, where was your mental state at that time, if you can recall? Just, I've seen a level that I know existed, but now I got a taste of it, and then I have to basically put that on hold to try to increase my confidence, get used to a bigger play with the hopes that I could return back to that environment.
Yeah, honestly, it wasn't that bad. Like, I was kind of okay with it because I understood that, yeah, that level was really good, but all of those guys are 13, 14 years old in that league that I was playing in. So I'm still playing against my age, my proper age, even though they were a little bit more physically advanced than I was at the time. But going into high school, I'm playing against 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, maybe even 19-year-olds in some cases. So while the quality might not be the same on the ball, maybe even the trainings or the facilities that we play on, but the competition was harder, in my opinion, because I had to think quicker. I had to anticipate quicker. If I wanted to get on the ball, I really had to do the work to get on the ball. I had to get in position early. I had to call for it early. I probably had to fight some dude who was 2 times bigger than me to get it. So, like I said, well, again, the quality wasn't maybe as good. Taught me a lot of useful lessons going back into academy that I kind of accepted because, my dad had a 1v1 with me, sat me down. It was actually on the way to Wadsworth. We were playing Wadsworth in a preseason game. He's like, listen, if you want to play in this game, if you play, that means you're staying for the season. So he's like, you got to make this decision now. It's like, this is what I think is going to help you if you play. This is what will maybe happen if you go there. So he could probably give me 2 options, like go there as I'm going back to internationals, going to academy. So he gave me 2 options, and I'm like, go back to internationals, pay a lot of money to play in a league to lose almost every weekend and probably not get much better, or go to high school, maybe take a step back, but learn a couple of things that I needed to learn in my development as a player. So I was okay with it because I also had I had a good friend group in that team through my soccer youth growing up in Jackson Select and all that. So a lot of those guys I was playing with, I played with since I was 11 or 12. So that transition wasn't too difficult. If anything, it was actually pretty easy. Because I kind of walked right in. I felt very much, like I said, my dad was a coach. He's been a coach for a really long time. So I, would always go to his trainings when I was younger. Would go to the summer trainings, watch you run on the track, watch Derek Zuniga kill everybody on the track. A couple other guys throwing up.
Yeah.
So I knew what was going on. I knew the deal. So going in wasn't that difficult. And don't get me wrong, there's few people on the team, in the media, the reporters that say maybe I'm only playing because my dad's a coach. I'm only starting because my dad's the coach, which obviously don't like hearing that. I get it. But so that was kind of a motivator for me. I was like, listen, yeah, my dad might be the coach, but this is the real deal.
Sure.
What you're getting is the real deal. I'm not messing around here. I'm not just playing because I like the game. I'm playing it because, A, I'm really good at it. And B, I like to win. I like to compete. Yeah. And so doing that transition, it wasn't really that difficult. But fast forward to, let's say, the end of that season, we were playing Ignatius at, where was it? Do you remember?
Was that Macedonia?
I can't remember. It wasn't close.
I can't remember either.
For some reason, whenever we always played them, they would drive like 15 minutes, and we had to drive like 50. It was ridiculous.
Yes.
But, they popped us 4-1, 4-0, I think it was. Obviously.
Was Milhone on that team?
Milhone scored some pretty crazy goals that game.
Yeah.
2 crazy goals. Ridiculous. But, so they beat us 4-0. Again, another wake-up call. Like, I had a good season. I was playing well as a freshman. But, again, here's that next step. This is what that next step looks like. So, after that, I definitely wasn't going to go back and do my sophomore year. I kind of already knew that. So it was about, okay, what academy am I going to get into? And tried to go back to internationals. They didn't let me back. Don't really know why. I mean, obviously I know why. They didn't like me going to play high school, but there's a few other players that went and played high school, and they accepted back as well. So make of that what you will. But honestly, it was kind of a blessing in disguise because if I went back to internationals, then I wouldn't have gone to crew. So after I trialed with internationals for, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 trainings, maybe. Didn't let me back, didn't accept me. I think it was another maybe week, 2 weeks later, my dad gets a text from a guy named James Field. He was the U14 coach at crew. He saw that I wasn't with the team. I don't know how he found out. I think it was Mr. Parente. Maybe he sent him a message. I can't exactly remember. But yeah, he sent me a message, asked if I wanted to come down for a couple trainings. Obviously said yes. It was actually, I found out, it was a Monday after school. It was like 3 o'clock, and the training started at 6. She was like, hey, we got an invite to the Columbus Crew to go train. But like, we need to leave now if you want to go. I'm like, yeah, let's go. So actually, the first training I did really well. Played pretty well. Was turning some heads. They didn't really like me because I was nutmegging a couple guys, beating people, doing my thing. And they didn't like that, of course, right? The new guys showing up. But
You are that guy.
The coach was a fan, brought me in, let me play for the season. But yeah, that first season down in Crew was very, very difficult. Very difficult because, like I said, I was going to school from 6, wake up at 6, leave school at, 2:45, I think is when the last bell went. And then immediately hop in the car, drive to Columbus. Do that, I think it was 3 days a week I did that. And yeah, it started to really affect my family, to be honest with you. Finances, getting food, gas. My grades started to suffer because I just wasn't able to do much homework. I wasn't sleeping as well because I had to sleep in the car all the time. And I had to get up at 6 a.m. for school. I wasn't playing well. So, it was all of these factors. And I started to really, that's when I really started to get very tough on myself. A lot of self-doubt, a lot of negativity. Irritation, frustration. That's where it kind of formed, was that first year, because, I'm looking at this, I'm like, my parents, my family, my brother included, are sacrificing a lot so I can go down and play. And I wasn't playing that well. I wasn't understanding it. I just couldn't seem to get it that first half season, or at least maybe 3/4 of that first half season. And yeah, so it was a lot of pressure because they were making these crazy sacrifices for me, and I didn't feel like I was keeping up my end of the bargain. But I think what attributed to that, me just not understanding the style of play there, is because it was different. It was different than anything I ever learned. And I guess we could talk about that, tactics behind it. So basically what we did was, it was positional play. Right? I never played positional play before. I was stick me in the middle, let me go around, get on the ball, dictate tempo, do my thing, right? Here it was not like that. I just sit in my spot, wait for the right moment, and when I get the ball, do my job. I had certain things that I could do. And that was really difficult for me, was that waiting around for my teammates to find me the ball, because I never had to do that. So whenever I'd get the ball, it's like, okay, I haven't gotten the ball in 5 minutes. I want to do something. And I'm a rhythm player. So I need maybe 3 or 4 passes, simple touches to get myself into the game, get myself into a rhythm, so I can start feeling comfortable. That's not rhythm for me, right? Standing around waiting to get on the ball. Sometimes there's points in the game when we were first starting learning the style of play with this team where I wouldn't touch the ball for 10 minutes probably. Frustrate me so bad. I'm like, I could go over there and get the ball right now, but I can't because this is what they wanted us to do. And so the way we set it up was, our starting formation was a 4-3-3. I could get a couple things wrong. It's been a while, but so 4-3-3. And, anyone who's involved with modern soccer tactics might sound a little familiar. That was our starting formation. Our, in-game formation through the flow of the game and everything was a 3-2-5 almost. So we would drop our 6, Sean Zwatsky, in between our center backs. So they would spread out. Center backs would drop in, or Sean would drop in. Keegan Hughes on the right. Abubakar Keita on the left. Pretty solid back three, in my opinion.
Sure.
So they would kind of just spread the ball around the back. That was kind of their job, was swing it around, wait for moments to appear. So then, after Sean dropped in, our 8 and 10 became 2 8s. And then me, left winger, became a second 10. And our 7, at times, not all the time, could become a second 10 as well. Pep Guardiola, 3-2-2-3. So I was doing this shit when I was in high school.
Sure.
And it was really effective. It was really difficult to learn. And I think what it attributes to my progression as a player and my development as a player was being in that system under Greg Berhalter and learning how he had the first team play. It was basically trickled down all the way through the academy. All the teams are playing the same way.
I was going to say, first team wise, I want to say Will Trapp was that guy
Will Trapp
for the first team.
Yeah. Will Trapp was
dropping in between the center backs and then
dictating tempo, stopping counterattacks, doing the dirty work. And honestly, I mean, I say it to this day. Like whenever someone asks me who the best player I've ever played with, is John Zwatsky. Like when I stopped playing with him is when I realized how good he really was. And I'm like, dang, really use that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, on that team we had some really, really talented players. I mean, so we had Keegan Hughes on the right, center back, who was homegrown. John Zwatsky, still on Columbus Crew. Boubacar Keita, I'm pretty sure he's playing in Ireland, First Division right now. Don't quote me on that. Isaiah Parente and Aiden Morris was our midfield. Actually, scratch that. It was Isaiah and a kid named Jensen Lukasco, two really good players. Isaiah left for high school or college early. So it was Aiden Morris. That's when he got moved in, my senior year.
Isn't Aiden at
Middlesbrough, I think. Yeah. Making a lot of money.
Just
playing real footy.
Just last year.
Yeah, this past season he just went, And then you had me on the left. Our 9 kind of was interchangeable. It was between two guys. It was Maloon Gambale or Hwang Un-suk. We got him from South Korea. And David Rona on the right wing, Louis Bolger on the right back. So, we had a really good team. But, in my opinion, a lot of those guys, especially the ones that started with the club at U14, can attribute their development to the style of play we were playing and the education we were getting.
Sure.
Because 14s, we started learning it. We were terrible at it. We were so bad. We were losing games left and right. We'd figure it out every now and then, right? You'd have a couple games where you play well, where teams just couldn't really figure it out what we were doing. But a lot of teams were keen on it because we didn't understand the timing of the movements, when to move the ball, who needed to get it at the right time, just stuff like that. It takes time. So, luckily, I got into a system where it was about an education and about a process, and not just about getting a lot of really good players in to compete and then getting rid of the guys who maybe didn't play that big of a role and bringing in more players that might be better than the guys that were starting, right? That's probably the average model, I would say, in youth back in the day. It's a little bit different now. But so my next year, my sophomore year, was really difficult for me. I didn't play well at all. I just wasn't playing well, to be honest. I didn't get along with the coach. We just didn't see eye to eye. I'm not really sure what it was. It was probably my attitude, my character. I'm not going to sit here and say that I was the greatest teammate. I'm not going to, that I was the easiest player to coach. I get it. But, I mean, that's just who I was. That was the kind of player I was. That was the kind of competitor I was. So me and him just didn't really see eye to eye, and it wasn't really working. And then, actually, scratch that. That was my junior year. Sophomore year actually went okay. Take that back. We had a pretty good team, again, but we were still learning the system. And that year, it was the first year the system started to work, actually. So we made it all the way to the playoffs, and I didn't really become a mainstay within the club or that team, that age group, until probably the last 3 or 4 months of the season. I started to play better, understand the movements, understand what my role was, what I needed to do. I was scoring a lot more. I was creating a lot more. Just doing my job, doing my role more consistently.
Does that finally give you that mental peace? Because you said earlier in the conversation that my family's sacrificing a lot, my brother's sacrificing a lot, my mom and dad are sacrificing a lot. I'm not playing well. I'm not understanding the system, even though, again, I will say that the IQ, that's not the doubt. It's just the transitional phase.
Yeah, and, you're 14 years old. You don't really get that at the time. So when you're, when I was freshman year, playing bad, I'm like, dang, I'm playing bad. Parents are sacrificing all of this, finances, arguing a lot. Maybe I'm not even going to be on the team next year. Those thoughts going around. And then obviously get picked back for the next team. I actually get a carpool for that next year with a lot of the guys that were playing, like Sean Zwatsky, Isaiah Parente, and actually good friend Alex Shirdawa. They all lived up in Cleveland area, and Medina, Copley. So we'd all carpool down together. So it made it a little easier. Funny enough, I started playing better, right? So, yeah, around that time, about 3-4 months left in the season, when I really started to become a mainstay within the lineup. I was kind of a rotation player beforehand. And we make it all the way to the playoffs. We don't advance out of the playoffs, but it's good steps, right? We're showing progression. We went from U14 year, kind of okay, maybe 500, playing very inconsistently, to the next year, a little bit more consistent, probably 600, 700 in the record, and making the playoffs. Not only making the playoffs, but getting a win in the playoffs too. So that's progression. Signing's a progression. That next year, though, that first half of the year was a disaster. Just very bad. I don't know what it was about it. Again, this is where that coach I was alluding to, for me personally, me and him just didn't see eye to eye on things. Again, I'm not really totally sure what the issue was, what the disconnect was. Like I said, I understand I wasn't the easiest player to coach or the easiest teammate to work with, but it just wasn't working. Our team, we had, out of the team last year that made the playoffs, we had a few guys that were older that moved on to the next age group, but we also had a lot of returning players to this age group. So the expectations were the same, if not more, right? Because you want to keep progressing. It's that education, the curriculum part of it. This year, okay, we got to expand off of what we did last year with this group. And we weren't. We were, again, like maybe 500, just below 500. The previous year in GA Cup, we made the highest tier for the GA Cup. So I got to play like Villarreal, a team from Chile, Aspire Academy from, I think it's Qatar. Don't quote me on that.
Let me ask you a question. In this, because you've mentioned like the curriculum.
Yeah.
And I know for some people that might be listening to this, or a lot of this is very soccer heavy from an in-depth standpoint, the minutia behind like American soccer system, right?
Oh, believe me, I'm gonna get into that.
But I wanted to ask you at this moment, what was the curriculum at Crew when it came to the emotional side or the mental side at that point, which I would imagine today is quite different with how professional organizations want to focus on developing the person. But at least on the outside looking in at that time, I always felt in those academy-based systems, it's now about winning.
Yeah.
It's not about anything else. You are basically acting as a professional player at a youth age. And if you don't get the job done, we're just going to treat you like we treat the first team.
Yeah,
it's like go home and figure it out.
It's not as ruthless, but there is a certain level to that for sure. You know, it is a professional environment. So at the end of the day, you know, now that I'm coaching for Can Fours, I have my own team, it's different because the parents pay. So, you know, they have a lot of leeway. They have a lot of say. You know, my job is to not only get the best out of their kids, but also make sure that they're getting the service that they want because they're paying for it. At Crew, it's not that way. It's essentially free. My parents are just paying for gas. That's really it, and maybe food. But since it was free and they were providing the service, they had autonomy, essentially. They could cut you if they wanted to cut you. They could suspend you if they wanted to suspend you. You know, things along that nature, just because parents don't have any say. So as a 14-year-old, yeah, it is a big jump. There was a lot of stuff that I had to figure out on my own. And one of those was that sophomore year or my junior year. That first half of the season, like I said, was a disaster. I was very frustrated, very angry all the time, just not happy with where I was at, not happy with how I was playing, not happy with how the team was playing and the results we were getting, because we were much better than what we were showing. I knew that. And there was one moment in particular that I remember that kind of, I would say, changed the way I viewed, like, I wouldn't say me, but the system as a whole. There was a game, we were playing Crew Wolves in a preseason game, I think it was at home. And I think we were up maybe 1-0. I was playing okay. But again, I wasn't in the starting lineup. I was kind of being, almost it felt as though like not forced out, but they were trying to find a better player to put in my position, is what it felt like. So, fair enough. It's part of the business. But obviously, as a 16, 17-year-old kid, that's really frustrating because I've been here for 2 years already. I've done the sacrifices. I've done my work, done my job. And again, here it is again. I got to go out there and prove myself again. And there was a play. The ball was going to the end line, out for a goal kick. I make like a 35-yard sprint to stop it, to kick it out for a throw-in. Got there clearly before it went out of bounds. It wasn't even close. The ref calls a goal kick. Yeah, instantly, under my skin. I'm already pissed off as it is. Call the ref a D-head right to his face. And honestly, shouldn't have done that. I don't condone that. Like, I'm not saying that was the right decision. But given the context of the situation, I'm not going to blame myself. But
never.
Yeah, right. A shout out to I can't remember his name, but there's a kid on Crew Wolves. Ref obviously didn't like that. So he's like waving his flag. He's like, come get him. Come get this kid. And the kid on Wolves was like, no, stop. Like, it's a preseason game. Let's just play. It doesn't matter. So he honestly probably stopped me from getting sent off, to be honest with you. So that next day, I get a call from our director, Dennis Sanchez, basically saying, like, hey, we heard what you said. Here's your punishment. I think I was benched for a couple of games. I accepted it. I was like, okay, fine. I get it. Fast forward a couple weeks, we're playing internationals away. So kind of a derby for me, right? That's my old club.
Sure.
And they didn't really seem to be too keen on me as it is. So it was kind of a lot of animosity there. And in that game, I ended up scoring 2 goals. We won 2. I think we won, was it 3-2, I think? But we had a kid on the team who had a really good performance. He had 2 assists, but he also got carded for dissent, swearing at the ref. And his reward for his good performance and being carded, almost sent off for dissent, was a first-team call-up that next week. So, as a 17-year-old kid, like, how else am I supposed to process that? Okay, here's what I do it. I almost get sent off and get suspended for, 2 or 3 games. When this guy does it, he gets a first-team call-up, right? That's how my 17-year-old brain is processing that. So, again, it goes back to that, like, okay, what is it? What is it about me that I can't, like, express myself, or I can't? Like, when I go over the top, it seems to be astronomically worse than when some other guys go over the top. And another example I can give of that is, like, when I was in high school, I really wanted to go to Louisville, to be honest with you. That was, like, one of my number 1 schools. I just really liked the facility. I didn't care about the style of play. Didn't really care about the coaches. Their facilities were unbelievable. I'm like, I want to play on this grass every single day.
And we had just done a team camp there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We had just taken the whole Jackson team to their team camp.
Yeah.
And
so
their facilities were.
It was a really good experience. I really enjoyed it. Facilities were unbelievable. The players were very nice. Coaching staff was definitely not my cup of tea, which is probably why I didn't go there. Their ideology for the game was just different than me. So it just wouldn't have matched. But then I watched them. They're actually playing Akron my senior year in the Elite 8. It was a PK shootout. Akron won. But I'm watching the game, and they have this guy up top. I can't remember his name. It was a striker. He was number 10, maybe. He was acting I swear, the exact same way that I act. Throwing his arms all over the place, being extra, what's the word? Expressive,
Sure.
Very emotional. And again, so I'm watching this. I'm like, all right, what is it? Like, am I just not good enough? Am I just not a good enough player to be able to do those kind of things? Do I need to reel that back because maybe I'm just not as good as I think So again, back to the identity crisis. I'm like, what is it about me that when I act out and I get a little bit overly emotional, I'm punished? It's a bad look. It hurts my image. But when some other people do it, it's kind of celebrated. I mean, look at Ibrahimovic, Ronaldo, these guys, super arrogant players. I'm not saying I'm as good as them. Let's not get
No,
let's
I
not
think,
get that.
but I think those are very good examples.
Yeah, and they're kind of celebrated for that, right? That's kind of their character. That's their image. That's their marketability.
I would even say from like an American standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
and this is me thinking about like the Netflix documentary on the wide receivers, not quarterbacks, but the wide receiver documentary.
Yeah.
And you look at Justin Jefferson, you look at like the Odell Beckhams, and their tagline is "Diva wide receivers."
Yeah.
You either hate them
Or you love him.
or you love them.
Yeah. It's like Draymond Green.
Yeah.
You either hate him on your team or you love him when he's on your team, or you hate him when you don't.
Yeah.
So, and I understood early on in college that I wasn't going to be like early on in high school, that I wasn't going to be every coach's cup of tea. I understood that. But it still rubbed me the wrong way. I was still a insecure, immature teenager. So it was as hard as I tried to be about it, and like it didn't affect me, it did, obviously. It was very frustrating. And especially, after that point, that little 6 months in my junior year, coach came along. His name was Ben Cross. Probably the best thing that ever happened to me in my career, to be honest with you. I owe a lot to that guy. He calls me into the 18s team. He's like, we're going to give him a chance. We have a couple players injured. Let's just call him in. Let's see how he does. And I can't remember what my first game was. I think it was, again, against Crew Wolves, U18s, who at that time, the Crew Wolves U18s were probably one of the better teams in the country. They had some really, really good players. At that time, they didn't really pan out later in their careers, but at that time, they're nationally ranked, some national team players, very good team. I played really well. We ended up winning that game as a severe underdog. And that game kind of made me stick with the 18s. So I was with the 18s for the rest of the season. And we actually go on a run, play really well that spring. We get all the way to the DA playoffs when they weren't in it. And throughout that process, we also had, I think it was 3 other U17s join the U18 team. So it was me, Isaiah Parente, Sean Zawatsky, and Griffin DeBoll. We were all playing up with the 18s at the time. And we were playing really well. We were playing really, really well. We were moving the ball very well. I was scoring, providing. We were winning, beating teams we probably shouldn't have beat. And I think the one game that I think really cemented my place in the club, in that organization as an academy player, was that season we played Real Salt Lake in the DA playoffs. And this team had Taylor Booth on it at the time. So very, very good player. He's still playing now. I think he plays in Netherlands. And we tied them 2-2. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I honestly felt like I was one of the best players on that field. I played really, really well. There was a play where I took the ball from inside my own half, beat 3 guys all the way, and almost got a corner at the end line. Like that, I was 5'6", 5'7" at the time doing that. And yeah, I almost win that game, tied that 2-2, played really well. And I think that kind of not only cemented myself within the club, but also kind of put my name out on the national stage. Because people were watching that game. They were there to watch Taylor Booth.
Sure.
And here comes Colin Biros out of nowhere, gets an assist, plays well, creates a lot of other chances that we could have scored on. And, heads start kind of turning like, okay, maybe he's a good player. And that next season, senior year, that's when I kind of blew up. That's when things kind of just exploded for me. We got some new players in. We actually went pretty hard on the recruiting part of it. And to be fair, it was the right move. Because you think about the progression.
Sure.
U14 year, okay. Sophomore year, better. Junior year, pretty good in the end of it. Senior year, this is when it's supposed to be our best. So now we're 4 years of training this system, training this style of play. This is when it's supposed to be okay, this is the finished product. And we were kind of because my dad would always go to these coaching conventions. And he would go to the crew exhibits. And they would be showing stats and training footage and game footage of my team to a bunch of other coaches because we were kind of like a case study for the club. So that's why I say I contribute a lot of my development of being a good soccer player to the crew. Because maybe in a different system, those couple of years where I didn't play well, they wouldn't have picked me back up again. They would have maybe just dropped me and I would have gone to a different club or something along those lines. But it was a curriculum there. It was a process. So they stuck with it. And towards the end, there was probably about 8 or 9 guys that were still around from that first team.
Sure.
So
It's the core.
yeah, the core group of guys. And yeah, we were really, really good. Very good. No one could really figure us out, to be honest with you. I was playing very well. We were moving the ball pretty well, scoring goals nearly every game. I think we were going into the DA playoffs. I think we were second or first in the league. I can't remember. But we didn't lose a game the entire spring. We tied a few, but we didn't lose a game the entire spring. And that was a big kind of momentum push going into the playoffs.
Sure.
Which, I mean, honestly, Q, like, I played really well those playoffs. I don't really, like I said, I'm not one to, maybe if you're close to me, I'll say these kinds of things to you, but out in public, I'm not just going to come out and be like, yeah, I'm that guy. I'm pretty good. That's me. I do all that stuff. It's not really my character. But, yeah, I played really well. I had 5 goals. I had an assist. And you think about, I was a top goal scorer of that playoffs, and we made it all the way to the semifinals. We lost to Gio Reyna and co. in the semifinals. That team was ridiculous at my CFC. It was probably the best team I've ever played.
For those of you that do not know, that are listening to this, that are not soccer fans, Gio Reyna is currently touted as one of the, if not the top American player in our national team pool. He, I believe, is playing at Dortmund, Borussia Dortmund, in Germany's first division. I think the more popular name for most people outside of the soccer community is Christian Pulisic, who is also doing his thing.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good at AC Milan. Yeah. So, is Pulisic, are you in his class?
No. He's 2 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who would have been the top player in your class, countrywide?
Top player? It changed every year. For a while, it was a kid named Andrew Carlton. He was he was touted as like the best player in the country. Kind of the same thing happened to him. He's kind of didn't pan out. Not really sure what happened. But anyway, the best player in my class. That's a tough one, to be honest with you. I really don't know, Q. There's a lot of names going through my head right now.
Yeah, I just didn't know, for some people to provide that perspective.
I could name some names that I played against in that run in the playoffs. I mean, so we played Sporting KC. I don't remember a lot of their names, but they had 3 or 4 kids that were playing with their USL team, their professional team.
Yeah.
Real Salt Lake, they had David Ochoa.
Okay. He's Mexico's?
I'm not sure. He's professional though.
Yeah.
Now. Richie Ledesma, he's playing over in Europe.
Yep.
PSV. I'm not too positive. Sebastian Soto, another really good professional.
Yeah.
NYCFC, Gio Reyna, Justin Hawk, both the Sands brothers. Dante Polvera. They had this one left back. I can't remember his name, but they signed him, or they brought him in just for that game. And he was ridiculous. So yeah, really high quality players, and I scored the most out of all of them. I don't know what else to really do about that, to be honest with you.
Sure.
So we lose to Gio Reyna in the semifinal. We lose to CFC in the final. I don't even know did he play in that game? I can't remember. But yeah, that was probably the best team I ever played. They played us off the park. We weren't even close, to be honest. That was probably one of the worst games I ever played.
I want to ask you a question because in the course of this, you said that there have been moments and times where, you're playing, you're showing yourself, and then there is a coach or there is this, reputation or this aura about you that either rubs your teammates the wrong way or the coaches the wrong way. I feel on the outside looking in, that didn't stop from that point. It just followed.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, you say that again?
Meaning at the college level,
yeah,
you ran into the same thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to be like that everywhere, right? Like I told you on the phone, I don't think my experience is particularly unique. I don't think I'm like a one of one. I would say probably one of thousands.
Mm.
It's just that, maybe I have the platform. You have the platform to maybe be able to talk about it.
Sure.
Maybe someone could agree with it, right? Just a little bit of a. But yeah, coaches, you're not always going to see eye to eye with them. And in college soccer, it's even more difficult because of just the way it's set up. If you want to get into that, we could skip right to that.
Hey, wherever you would like
Listen,
to go.
Man, I got a lot to say about college soccer. But
get into it, man. Let the people know, because I think this is why we wanted to do this conversation, is for that particular discussion, because I think no matter who listens to this, if people listen to it into this depth, into this point in time of the conversation,
yeah,
in my head, there's going to be a young man, young woman that wants to be a Division I athlete, whether that's football, basketball, baseball, soccer, that all have the dream, that all have done something at their respective club, academy, youth basketball, which the organization I can't think of at the moment. What is the basketball version of soccer? I can't think of it.
What?
I'm trying to think of what they consider club-wise for basketball.
Oh, AAU.
Thank you. Couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
The in-depths of AAU, the highlight tapes, the sending things to coaches. NIL now has to be a part of the conversation that end up coming up short. And the documentary that I want to reference, that why I think this conversation is so important, is because Tim Tebow said it in, I want to say it's Swamp Kings or something of that nature.
Yeah.
The documentary over Florida's run with him, with Urban Meyer. And he said something that left a profound impact on the way that I look at it. He said, the militant environment that Urban and that coaching staff painted was great for me, and I thrived in it. And he even got tearful because he said, I can't imagine what happened, and I don't necessarily know what happened to the people that don't.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And, from my own coaching experience now, given what you just said, every player is going to need to learn in their own way. Every player is going to need to learn the game in their own way. If they can't feel like they can be themselves and they can play the game in the way they see it, you're never going to get the best out of them. For me, coaching, if you get over tactical with it, overly robotic, I think this is a problem Pep Guardiola's running into. He's trying to, work every single pass instead of just letting the players see the game and play the game. You got players that are good enough to do it. Just let them go out and do it. Give them what the other team's going to do, how they're going to set up their style of play, and give your team guardrails. But at the end of the day, they're the ones out there playing. If you try and joystick them around for 90 minutes, more often than not, good things aren't going to happen because soccer is free-flowing. It's not like basketball. It's not like NFL where there's a set play every single time. It's free-flowing. You can't predict everything that's going to happen. And, especially at college, especially D1 soccer, a lot of people need to understand, I think is confused, is the rules are different. It's a different game. So when people tune in and watch, especially back in the day when I was playing, they've changed some of the rules now. And they watch the style of play that's happening. It is very direct. It's high tempo. It's fast. And I compare it to the NBA and Euro basketball. It's basketball still, but they're two completely different games. And you'll hear the NBA players and the Euro basketball players talk about it all the time, especially Luka Doncic. He even said it. He's like, listen, Euro basketball's harder. The NBA is better, but Euro basketball's harder just because the rules are different. College soccer, while it might not look the greatest, don't underestimate the quality of it. There's really, really, really good players in college soccer. It's just the rule set within the game allows for a certain style of play to be more efficient, and that is your direct, high tempo, high press, get the ball forward quickly style of play. And what attributes to that is the subbing rules, in my opinion. They're changing it now, but back in the day, I'll just run it through you real quick, give you an example of how it worked. Let's say I started a game and I got subbed out in the first half at the 30th minute. I can go back in the second half. Let's say I have a howler for the first 5 minutes. I get subbed out. I can then go back in again. The first half, you can't re-entry. Second half, you get a re-entry. So certain schools that would play against us at Akron, a team who likes to build out, play around, play the game the right way, they would just press us for 90 minutes. Just press up on our 18 for 90 minutes or pack it in, play on the counter. Because you need to understand, it's still amateur soccer. So the quality required to build out against teams that are sprinting at you for 90 minutes straight and constantly rotating new players in to keep the energy levels high is extremely difficult. The quality needs to be very, very high. And there only has to be one or two moments within the build-up for it to go wrong and get scored on. So that was the frustrating part for me about college soccer that I couldn't get, was the impatience of the game almost. Because that was the way that was just the way the game was set up. That was the style of play that was the most effective. And while it is still amateur, it's not. Because these coaches, especially at the higher levels, are making real money. Real money. And they want to keep that job, obviously, and they're only going to keep it if they win. So that, to me, is professional. That's a professional level. But you're not treated as one. And it was very frustrating for me in that experience. Not to mention, you're also separated from your boyhood club with zero progression into any first team at all. There's college soccer, at least at the Crew, there's a first team. So now, it wasn't like that when I was there, but they have the 18s, and then they have the MLS next, and they have the first team.
Yeah.
You progress through all the stages to the first team. College soccer is just one team.
Yeah.
And you got to hopefully play well enough that these guys over here will see you, and then you'll get signed. And I think when it came down to it, for me, I was just kind of stale news by the time it came time for me to be professional. I was 22. I was too old to have real market value, I would say, but too inexperienced in the professional game for teams to want to take a flyer on me, because college soccer isn't the professionals. It's separate. The games are different. They play differently. And don't get me wrong, I believe my skill set definitely suits the professional game more, just the way it plays. But I wasn't in that for 5 years.
Let's pause for a second, because I think, again, I want to make sure that everybody can catch what you're saying.
Okay.
So let's put a real-life context on this.
Yeah.
Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos is showing his value as a rookie quarterback who played umpteen years of Division I college football before he hit the NFL. With that amount of games and development, has now shown itself to have this model that, maybe the old guy coming in as a rookie that has a high level of starts at the Division I level, that's better preparation for him to be a rookie and start off hotter with the right coaching. What you're saying, back when you came to the fold, which is 4 years ago? After I played 92 Division I soccer games and entered into and performed in 2 national championship title games, plus all of this academy play, at 22, I had nothing to offer after I have done all of this.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of essentially what it felt like. I mean, I've looked back on it. I think there's a few reasons why. I think one definitely has to do with my size. I'm a smaller guy, right? And in the lower levels of American soccer, USL, League One, Championship, it's still very physical. It's a physically dominated game, still that way. It's changing. It's getting better. The quality's getting better. They're getting better players in. But back when I was there trying to work in, it was still very physical. And teams like to trade within the league. They don't like to bring new guys in. They want to, I don't want to say it's the American culture, but it kind of is. It's a win now culture.
It's the gatekeepers again.
They want to win now. They don't want to, you look at Arsenal back in COVID and even a couple years before that and after, they were horrible, right?
Easy.
They were bad. Let's be honest. They were bad. They were really bad.
Team, man. Easy.
I mean, COVID Arsenal might have been one of the funniest teams I've ever seen.
Easy, bro.
But anyway.
You hurt my soul.
they were building a team. They had a lot of young guys, Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, who was their striker? They had to get rid of Aubameyang, right? So they're going through a rebuilding phase, and they stuck with some younger players that they knew were really good, but they needed time to develop.
Yeah.
We don't do that over here. We want to win now because it's a for-profit organization at the end of the day. They want to win now. They need that. They need to win now because that's what's going to generate revenue. So when it comes to teams wanting to build a future, don't really have the incentive to do so. Why? There's no relegation. They're going to be in the league regardless, even if they finish last.
Right.
They're going to be in the league regardless. So you see a lot of these MLS teams, a lot of these players that are on the $1 million contracts, they're on the worst team in the league, but it's all hunky-dory because they know they're going to be in the league again next year.
Also, these guys will never hear this plug, but literally to that topic of conversation for any nerdy soccer person that wants to listen to it, Tim Howard and Landon Donovan do have a podcast that you can find on your streaming platforms. They literally just had this conversation about promotion and relegation in the American system and why they believe it will or will not work. So if you want to take from a soccer perspective, if you want to hear two guys in our country that are well respected for their playing careers and are still respected post-playing careers with what they're contributing to the game of soccer, Tim Howard and Landon Donovan do have a podcast, and they do talk about promotion and relegation to what he's speaking to.
Yeah, I'm going to watch that.
It's good. It's very good.
But, yeah, so in college soccer, it's a weird dynamic because it's a professional level, in my opinion, but you're not really treated as a professional. It's different now, but, I didn't get paid. I didn't see any money. I'm actually in debt doing all of that, student loans.
Sure.
And that kind of stuff. So, and the training, the grind you have to do. When I got into college, it was 5 straight years of nothing but soccer. I couldn't take time off. I didn't have that luxury. I wasn't great in my fitness. But so I want to talk about my freshman year of college, because that I think was the penultimate season of my career. That's when I think my stock was the highest, if you will. So, we go from Columbus Crew, making the DA playoffs, whatever. I'm pretty high ranked in my class. I make it to Akron. I start probably the first 4 or 5 games of the season, and we weren't very good. We weren't winning. I don't know if you remember, we started off that season 0-3-1 or something like that. And I get benched. I think it was after Canisius. We beat Canisius 10-0. That was kind of a wild game. But I didn't score a goal. I got subbed out in the 23rd minute, and all of a sudden we just started bagging goals left and right. Like crazy. I'm like, oh, well, there's my starting spot. It was fun while it lasted. It looks like I got to go get it back again. I didn't really start again until probably 8 or 9 games later, maybe less. But we were 6-6-2. We were out of the tournament, not even in question to go into the national final. And I could be wrong about this, but the way I view it is we literally kind of we made a mid-season change in our style of play. Kind of took what the Crew did, what I did at the Crew, and just flipped it. So I was coming off the right instead of the left. We had Abdi Muhammad going up the wing. We had our back 3, 2 in the midfield. Wide winger out left. Our 10 would shift into the left half space. And we had our 9 up top. And I was a right winger in that right half space, with Abdi Muhammad as our right wing back, being essentially a right winger. And no one in the country could figure it out. It was kind of ridiculous. We were moving the ball really freaking well. No one could get close to us. We had a couple players that, even for me, that formation changed my game completely. It changed Marcel Zajac's game completely. Abdi Muhammad's game completely. That change of moving me into the half space and utilizing the half spaces made people's career, in my opinion. That change. So good on Jared Embick, because I don't really give him a lot of praise, to be honest with you, but that was a really good change. And
let's keep in mind, people, at this time, for those of you that are aware of this, Darlington Nagbe, captain of Columbus Crew, had submitted himself as a legend at Akron as they had come off a national championship win. Akron University was the creme de la creme of NCAA Division I college soccer at that point. So please, to put this into perspective, you're walking into, the most targeted team in the country at the highest level that you could possibly play at an amateur level.
And not to mention, I watched this program since I was a kid. My dad took me to all the games.
Backyard.
Yeah,
it's in our backyard.
All the games. So if anyone would read the articles that said it was my dream school, it really was. It's like me being a front page player for this team, kind of an out of reality moment. It was like, wow.
And to put it into perspective, we're 10 years, 11 years difference of age. And even when I was that 14, 15, 12-year-old age, like, you want to go see next level play, you go watch Akron.
Yeah.
You want to go to, is it Cub Cadet?
Cub
Cadet Field. You want to go and see like a beautiful college facility that's
best field in the country, man.
15 to 20 minutes up the road from Massillon and Canton. Yeah, you're going to go to, even at times, you go to an Akron game before you would go to a Crew game.
Yeah.
For the quality of play that Caleb Porter had started to put in to the team and whatnot. So
it was a staple Northeast Ohio, especially in college soccer. It was University of Akron, funny enough. Kind of an odd school for it, but
fantastic playing environment, sold out games. Every home game was sold out. Season ticket holders, the team went over, or I think the facility did a little redesign as well, a little update to enlarging the stands and just really pouring some money into it just because of the national title under Caleb Porter, and a lot of those guys went to the MLS as well, so.
Caleb Porter's still coaching the MLS, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he came, I think he had
New England,
some medical issues that took him out and brought him back, I think was the story. So,
but so made that change, and like I said, no one in the country could figure it out. We were beating teams. I mean, you think of the run we went on. We played Ryder at home for the first round, went away to Syracuse, away to Wake Forest, away to Stanford, and we played Michigan State in the semis, and then we played Maryland in the final. And the only two teams that were keen on what I was doing and my role in the team and how important I was in that system was Wake Forest and Maryland. They took me out of the game. And funny enough, we just squeaked by in those games. Wake Forest scored a goal in the last minute that, to this day, I'm still not sure if it was offside or not. I'm going to say it was offside, obviously. But it was tight. And the Maryland, we lost. So, after that season, I was like, okay, my stock has got to be the highest it's ever been. Surely, maybe not, if not the Crew, someone is going to try and cash in, right? Not a peep.
And you did have a goal off of like a 40 pass sequence that you can
Stanford,
find on YouTube that, 40 passes.
Which Cinco posted that on Twitter.
Yeah, dominating possession and nice little cutback header goal. And
my role in it was not as substantial, but I got the goal at the end of the day. So.
Hey, we just got to talk about the facts.
Yeah, but, so I'm thinking, all right, I'm ready to make this next step. I feel like I'm ready for it. And, I didn't get a peep. Not a thing. I got interest from an agent who sent some middle-aged woman in a bikini in her profile picture on Instagram to my DMs to try and get information out of me. So I'm like, all right, this guy clearly isn't serious. That's what I got. So going to sophomore year, actually that next spring, that's when everything just went downhill. That shit you not. It just, I got my first real injury that spring, tore my groin. For people who don't know, that's sports hernia. That's like seems like a broad term from what I've learned about it.
Sure.
But I tore my groin. They just considered it a sports hernia. And, I was so scared of sitting out and not really understanding how the college process worked because I was still new.
Sure.
So looking back on it, spring is useless, okay, in my opinion. Spring is the most pointless time in the college soccer season, and I think college coaches know that, which is why they're trying to go to the 10-month schedule.
Yeah.
So looking back on it, definitely shouldn't have done that, but I'm a kid. I don't know any better. I'm 19, 18 years old. I'm supposed to have authority figures to tell me better, right? I tear my groin right before we play Kentucky. and I play on it for the entire spring, essentially, for about 2-3 months. And then I go to Flint City for the summer to play in USL League 2, stay there for about 2 weeks, and I'm like, dude, I can't do it. It hurts too bad. So I definitely go back to Akron, get a scan. Sure enough, it's really, really bad. Playing on it for that extra extended period of time added about 6 to 7 weeks onto my recovery. So I was out the entire summer. I didn't play at all. I was doing nothing but walking. And that was all I was allowed to do. And by the time season comes around, I have about I got like 2 weeks of rehabilitation, maybe. And then I got thrown right back into the team. So we do the beep test. The highest score that I got was like an 11.3. And you want to get a 14.6 to pass. That's like passing scores, 14.6. And I got an 11.3. Not good. Not in shape. Not ready to play. And I get thrown in anyway. So we go to Xavier away. Not in shape. Not in game form. I'm not ready to play at all. Of course, I don't think that because I'm 19. I don't know any better. And I have probably the worst 20 minutes I've ever played in college. And I think that was kind of my moment to seize, really, because we're coming off a huge season. I'm kind of like now a main name within the team. We're second ranked in the country. Going away to Xavier, there's like 3,000 fans there. And I played like maybe 22, 23 minutes. And I played really bad, and we lost the game 2-1, 2-0, something like that. And that sparked a 7-game losing streak at Akron Soccer. A 7-game opening season losing streak, 0-7 to start the season. But we look at our schedule, hardest schedule in the country. I don't care what anyone says. We start the season away to Xavier, home to Stanford, away to Creighton, away to Maryland, away to Pitt, home to VCU, away to Marshall. That's how we opened our season. And we lost those games by like 1 goal, right? So they're tight games. It's not like we're being played off the park. In most cases, I thought we were the better team. We just couldn't score, and we were leaky in the back. Just gave up some silly goals that you're just, head scratchers. You're like, dude, that guy shoots that ball like that 100 times. He's going to score it once like that.
Sure.
Kind of those moments where you're like, just can't really do anything about it. And we lost our minds. Everyone was so mad at each other. No one liked being in the locker room. It was such a depressing time. We finished the season 6-10-2. But mind you, that season, I was one of 3 players on that team to get all-MAC first team, and we still won the MAC regular season. I scored a game-winning header at West Virginia to win the league, and I got all-first team Ohio as well. My grades were pretty good. So I'm like, okay, even though I had a bad season, I felt personally, I still, once I got fit, I felt like personally I had a decent season.
Keyword resiliency.
Yeah. And again, not really a peep from the next level. But I don't know what was going on there. I mean, I was being told that there was communications back and forth because, Jared and Caleb was the coach at the time. So I'm like, Jared and Caleb coached together. Easy connection. I felt like it would have been, should have been, I felt like super easy to get me into that team.
Sure.
It just wasn't happening. And I don't really know the reasons why. I can guesstimate, obviously, given the things I've already said. But, yeah, I don't really know. And then COVID happens. Absolute nightmare. And that season, we were really, really determined to go into that fall season, make amends. The whole team was bought in. We came back, probably the earliest we ever came back in the summer. We were training in the summer for 2 months straight, 5 days a week, give us the weekends off. So we were really determined to go out, right the ship. Season gets canceled. And then we're training for 15, 16 months straight. And then we have finally the spring comes around. First game in, I think it was 16 months. I posted a story about it on my Instagram right beforehand because I was really excited. We play Villanova away. I mean, it goes about as you can expect for your first game in a year and a half. It's not that great. I think we lose 1-0. We were tied 0-0. We played 45-minute halves. Each lineup had 45 minutes. Yeah. My half was 0-0. Played okay. It wasn't great. The next half, we actually lose 1-0. And that was the game. That was our last preseason game.
Mm.
So going into the next game, I'm like, all right, well, we lost. It sucks, but time to lock in. Now it really matters. I'm benched. Me and 3 other guys who start every game were benched. And we're all looking at each other. We're like, what are we doing? Like, we've just trained with this group for 16 months straight. And after 45 minutes of soccer, that's enough time for you to be able to tell that, no, we need to switch. We need to change it all. And, I mean, as you already know, COVID season didn't go well. We did not play well. I actually take that back. We were playing okay. We actually went 3-1 to start. And then we had to sit out for 17 days because of COVID and like COVID protocols.
Yeah.
And then we had to play 4 games within a week and a half or 2 weeks.
Yeah, at the college level, that's not easy.
No.
I
And
don't care what level you're talking about, that's not easy.
I played 90 minutes every single game almost, besides the last game. Everyone in this team, this group needs a refresh.
Yeah.
Like, just maybe get some new players in, get some guys out. And, I wasn't totally set on leaving. It was definitely in my head. Talked to my dad about it. I'm like, listen, you look at the program now, too. They just won their first playoff game in 6 years? And it sucks. I still care about the program. It still means a lot to me. I want to see them do well. I want it to succeed. But it's like I feel, I don't know how to say it. It's just my time there was so spoiled and rotten that it's just left a bad taste in my mouth.
Let me ask you this before we wrap up, because I think this is important. 4 years out and removed.
Yeah.
Not maybe being where you thought the life path was at, literally surrendering everything. What would you say you're at now, mentally, emotionally, with your career?
I'm doing better. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've definitely gotten a lot more perspective on things. Like I alluded to in the previous podcast we did, I just got too close. I was too focused on trying to be a pro. I was too focused on trying to do the things to get to be a professional that I lost focus of why I started playing to begin with. It was because it was fun. I enjoyed playing. It's a fun game. I was good at it. And when you get too close, I mean, that's for me. It's probably not gonna associate with everyone else. But when I get too close to things and I get too tense, I actually play worse. And that was kind of the atmosphere at Akron. It was very tense, very uptight. It's very serious, very professional, which, to an extent you need. But for me, it was almost kind of like the wrong atmosphere because that brought out kind of the worst parts of me in a way. And I think that really hindered my performances. But, yeah, looking back on it now that I've gone through it, I have a lot of good experiences, down that I'm coaching. Okay, what experience can I give these kids that will benefit them in the long run? And so I'm grateful for those experiences, right? At the end of the day, as bad as they were, it's also given me a lot of perspective. A different type of experience that's made me mature a lot. And definitely not the same person that I was back in high school or college. Done a lot of growing. But, yeah, it was a really, really frustrating and difficult time for me. I just couldn't seem to figure it out. But it seems like things are coming in place. Life is doing what it's meant to do. It's really all I can do. Just let it play out, see what happens.
Before we wrap, I want to say in the last podcast I told you it broke my heart to hear how much pain you were in, and knowing what you had given up and knowing what you had given to the game, to not be able to look back and appreciate everything of what you just said. So as a brother, it makes me extremely happy to hear that you can tangibly grasp that perspective and have that, you said, gratitude. I do think what is the most important takeaway that I hope everybody can hear from this, and I will back it by a YouTube content creator in the golfing space that I watch. It's Wes and George Bryan, and they were on a podcast recently, And Wes Bryant, who is the PGA Tour winner, was never better than George in their early in college career. George was supposed to be on tour. And Wes said something that's very important. This is both spiritual based, but it's also important to what you said. He said, once I got saved and I knew that my identity was not in what I did within 4 rounds of golf, my perspective shifted, and I ended up playing some of the best golf of my life.
Yeah, and thanks to you getting me to play at Akron City last summer, it was some of the best soccer I've ever played in recent times. I mean, I scored a hat trick against in the semifinals of the
banging hat trick, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, I know
like a banging, not just like a hat trick. Some of them goals were.
That's what I'm saying. So I know it's what was it, UPSL?
Sure.
So the level isn't ridiculously high, but I mean these are still D1 players at the peak of their level, and yeah, that was probably the best hat trick I ever scored. So it's kind of funny seeing how once your perspective shifts, once you start to be able to really put things into a realistic view, just what that can do to your game, when it just stops becoming the penultimate most important thing in your life.
And that's one of the messages we drive here at All Paths. So I do drive that message with a lot of the high school athletes that I talk to, and I want to put this into quantitative for people. If you spend 6,000 hours on your sport and you spend only 200 hours of that in your personal identity, where's the balance?
Exactly.
The math doesn't even math in any way, shape, or form. And it's the fact that I've stopped the rest of my life for this sport. Ultimately, yeah, my identity, you even said in the last podcast, if I played terrible, at Akron, one of the games, if I played horrible, I didn't want to show my face on campus. I didn't even want to go to class because of how close it was. And I think across the board, any athlete that you talk to, even at the highest level, I think they would back that idea that when I lose perspective, when my whole self and being mentally and emotionally is wrapped up on 90 minutes on the pitch, 4 quarters of basketball, 4 quarters of football, 3 hours of a tennis match, 18 holes of golf, it does become stunting in more ways than one.
And you don't really realize it until you've experienced it. It's one of those things. I can tell people the story. I can tell people what happened, give them the nitty-gritty details. But at the end of the day, they might respect it, but they're not really going to understand it, right? Because they didn't live my life, just like I haven't lived your life.
Sure.
I'm not really going to understand what it is you're going through. But hopefully, just my experiences, like I said, don't think they're particularly unique. Maybe someone could agree with it. And the last thing I want to do is, cause any animosity, right? I'm not trying to be combative. I'm not trying to be, call people out or anything like that. This is just what happened. And I think for everyone that was there during that time have grown and learned from, those experiences, because it was a really difficult time.
Sure.
It was an unprecedented moment within the program's history. And not everyone's going to react in a way that might be appropriate for the situation. Myself included, my teammates included, coaching staff, athletic staff included, right? So it's how can we, take that moment, not just learn from it, but also how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? How do we, instead of seeing why it was bad, why did it become bad? That's kind of the process that I've been taking with this. It's okay, with my coaching, I tell the kids all the time, I'm don't play the game. Don't make decisions based on what you think I would want you to do. Mm-hmm. Play the game, make decisions based off of what the game is asking you to do, right? So the last example I guess I would give is there was a game we were playing Bowling Green at home or away. We gave them 20 corners. And if you know Bowling Green, they love corners. So eventually, the more corners you give them, the odds are they're probably going to score one.
Right.
And my coaches didn't really agree with that sentiment at the time. And so my point of view with that was, but I was a little too immature to get that point across, was okay, instead of trying to stop them from scoring on the corners, how can we stop them from getting corners? And that's kind of the thought process and what I've learned
Sure.
from that experience.
You know what's crazy, man? I will say this. I feel very grateful to be on this journey with you. You're sounding more and more like your pop, if that's a compliment. The wisdom that's coming from you, from just how I've seen you grown over the past 10 years. I'm very grateful for you sharing all of this. This is a very proud moment for me to see the man that you're becoming, right? This is beyond soccer. This is watching you turn into a man, and not just a man of character and high value, a man that wants to contribute and give back to people and understand that, you know, there's more out there for you. And it's exciting to see you stepping into that. And for all of you that are listening, if you ever want to be a part of this journey, we are definitely looking for more people to come in and have these amazing and wonderful conversations that can hopefully serve as not only a testimony, but maybe there are some nuggets of wisdom that you or your daughter or your son or your players can latch onto that can alter their course of how they're walking in their athletic journey at this point. If you want to find us, we are on all platforms. So our main website is allpass.us. There will always be links to our YouTube page, our Instagram. We are on LinkedIn. We are on Facebook. If you would like to have a contract with us, the pricing is live now for all of our direct services with teams, our consulting services, working with coaches. We are using the Mental Fitness Mentality Manual. There also is a coaching Mental Fitness Mentality Manual for coaching and coaching staff that is also going to be rolled out here, so that any team that wants to get into a relationship with us, the coaches will also be served as well. After I heard Ryan Day come out and talk about the Michigan loss being equated to the death of his father, it became very apparent that we are neglecting our coaches. We are asking our coaches to be mentally aware of their players, but we're not taking care of the coaches themselves in their own mental journey as well. So we want to make sure that we are attending to the leaders of the young minds as well. Colin, man, we're very appreciative for this part 2. I hope you guys all enjoyed the Athletes Helping Athletes podcast, and thanks for joining us.